Hello, my name is Dennis Chang, and I'm here to talk to you today about United States welfare programs. My claim today is that United States welfare programs stray from their intended purposes. The reason that this is significant is because the effectiveness of the United States government is denigrated by the ineffectiveness of their programs. What this means is that if we make too many programs that don't actually work, then future programs are disincentivized to be created because the public will be unsure about what to expect from the programs. This also wastes money that's from the budget, and given our current economic situation, that's not exactly a luxury that we can afford. The two programs that I want to talk to you about today are the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, and the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, also known as TANF. And I will use those as acronyms for the rest of the speech. First, I want to talk about SNAP. SNAP makes two big errors in that we now rely on it as a source of economic stimulus, and the second point is that it replaces food income rather than supplementing it. The point about economic stimulus is somewhat of a concession. I do have to admit that SNAP is accounting for 9% of our economic revenue in that it gets money moving through our economic system. But there's a great problem in all of this, and that is that we have become reliant on it, and we cannot remove the system without damaging our own economy very heavily. What this means is that this next point I'm going to say means that the program isn't working. And that means that we have to continue putting money into a program that doesn't work, which goes against our own government. And the reason it doesn't work is because it replaces food income rather than supplementing it. This is something that sociologist Peter Rossi has studied. And he has shown that healthier foods, on average, cost more money than inexpensive foods. But families that are on SNAP often replace the entire food income rather than putting their own money in with SNAP money to buy healthier foods. This sort of falls on deaf ears as I'm talking to college students, which I'm sure means that you've all had your fair amount of cup noodles. But it doesn't disregard the point that SNAP is not meeting its intended goal, which is to supplement the nutrition as opposed to replacing it. It's right there in the title. The second program I want to talk to you about today is TANF, which is the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And the reason that this law doesn't work is because they have exploitable loopholes in it, and more than that, it targets the wrong audience. The loopholes in TANF need warrant explanation on what TANF actually is. TANF is a program where a family that does not have any income receives temporary assistance. And this comes in the form of money each month, but it only happens for 5 years per lifetime, per person in the house. But a loophole in the system, as cited by the Center of Law and Social Activities, says that in some states, children are exempt from this, and they can continue on. The ticking 5-year lifetime span does not start until they're an adult, which means that families are often relying on the children, actually, to bring in the money. And the loophole of this system, the very act that people are exploiting it, shows that it is going against the intention of the system. The assistance is supposed to be temporary. And if you have to rely on it more than the allotted time frame, then that means that something is wrong with the program. The second part that is wrong with the program is that many people in TANF have disabilities. And this is not to harp on people who have disabilities, but a study by the Center of Policy and Political Studies shows that people with disabilities are less likely to go after jobs because they fear they are going to be discriminated for those disabilities. And because of this, because people with disabilities don't go after jobs, then it really doesn't end up being temporary assistance because they have no other form of income since they don't go after jobs. Both SNAP and TAMF are very relevant in today's society. SNAP because it is a part of the economy and cannot be removed, and TAMF because it is also starting to become embedded in our economy as people rely on it past its date. What this shows is that the United States government is not implementing proper programs, or rather that the programs are not being followed to their intended purposes, and this is wasting money. So, to summarize, SNAP and TAMF are programs that came out with an intended purpose, but do not fulfill that purpose. Thank you.
All right, the proposition's very directly stated. You do have a couple of acronyms that you have to explain. The secondary points are previewed, but they're not really phrased as claims. They are just labels of the two programs that you're going to be talking about. And if you've got declarative sentences, you ought to be using them for those secondary points, telling us, that the TAM program or the SNAP program fails to achieve its objective. It's not that complicated. It basically fits in with the main proposition in a pretty straightforward way. You do give us a little bit of background information on this, and I think that's okay, but it does seem to go on a long time, and that opening section seems very circular. When you listen to it on the video, I think you'll hear how repetitive it is and how it seems to be making the same point, and the proof for that point is often the same statement that you just made. Your internal labeling, like I said, you identify the secondary points clearly, but they're not phrased as claims. I thought that you had some good information that's testimony-based that talks about problems with the programs. I just was surprised that there wasn't any information that fit into the statistical category. For instance, there's basically no information about the number of people served by either of these programs. There's no information about how long the average person is in on these programs. There's no average information about what the costs are per person on these programs, or even how big a part of the welfare programs that happen to represent. Instead, we've got this speculative information, and I understand the theory behind it that talks about how it might discourage people from eating better foods, especially the supplemental nutritional program that you talk about. Although there's only an explanation of that. There's not really a demonstration that people are doing this. It just says it could be happening. And then on the second point, there's a piece of factual data that talks about kids being, in some states that's a loophole, but I don't get any data about families that have been on it for 20 years because of those loopholes. I don't have any statistics that suggest this. You're saying that it's supposed to be temporary, but I have no information that says that it isn't being temporary in your speech, and that's something that's that should be a basis for your argument, and it's not really presented here. I do like the fact at the end of the speech you come back to the proposition that you're talking about. I just felt like the proof on it was a little bit underwhelming. Your pacing is sometimes a little inconsistent also. There was a little bit of complication on the second point because you have multiple supporting claims there. That needs to be just a little bit sharper in its phrasing. Thank you.